What's up, everybody? King Triple C here, the Olympic champion, flyweight champion, the bantamweight champion of the world. And I got a public service announcement to all you wannabe MMA casuals or MMA fans for that reason. You guys make sure to listen to my boy's Story of the Fight with Will and Miro. You know why? Because Triple C said so. And if you don't, you can do me a favor and you can bend the knee to King Triple C 2.
All right, so Will, a while back I asked you to start kind of thinking about, who your three favorite personalities or characters or whatever you want to call it that you remember from MMA have been. And so I thought this would be a good time for us to kind of go over it.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think?
Definitely. It's one of those things that makes MMA stand out more so than other sports. Is not only is it not a team sport, but so it's just individuals, but then these individuals get to showcase themselves and we get to kind of develop big fandoms for them.
Nice. So you want to get us started with your third?
Yeah, my third is going to be the undefeated, undisputed gangster of West Lynn, Chael Sonnen.
Nice.
Helwani post-fight at UFC.
Ariel, is that camera big enough to take in the largest arm in West Lynn, Oregon that has found its way to Houston, Texas? Because that thing looks a little bit small.
Yeah, I think it is.
All right, well, then we can continue.
It's so funny because, I'm literally excited. To see who you pick. I'm, just sitting here all giddy.
Yeah.
Nice, dude.
For me, it's Chael just because Chael ushered in a new era to MMA, something that the WWE... I know a ton of people are huge WWE fans. I never have been. I didn't grow up watching it. It never clicked with me. But he did bring over the whole promo thing, the talking shit thing, just the over the top theatrics kind of deal with talking shit. And if it weren't for him bringing it over, it would have come over sooner or later. It seems like the whole world is almost WWE style right now. Even American politics are very similar to WWE. But so I think it would have happened without Chael, but Chael really was the first to usher it into MMA on the grand stage, fighting for titles, talking a bunch of shit, borderline racist things that he kind of got away with because everybody knew it wasn't racist. I don't know if he could have said some of the same stuff he said in the early days of his career if he did that right now.
About the Brazilians all being animals?
Yeah, didn't know they had computers in Brazil. Just some of the quotes from Chael are just insane. But
maybe he just really was confused. I don't know.
He claims that he just did not know. So he ushered it in and kind of paved a path for a lot of other fighters to kind of go that route, and he made it more prominent, and other guys opened their eyes to that. He got title shots off of his mouth. So I think he was the first in the UFC to really do that kind of thing. And plus, in my opinion, still the best at it in MMA. There's other guys who have tried and have had a ton of success doing it, but I still think he was the best at it, the most creative at it, the funniest at it. So I think that's why he's number 3 for me.
Listen, Vandalay, I will do a home invasion on you. I will cut the power to your house, and the next thing you hear will be me climbing up your stairs in a pair of night vision goggles I bought in the back of Soldier of Fortune magazine. I'll pick the lock to the master room door, take a picture of you in bed with the Nogueira brothers working on your jiu-jitsu. I'll take said photograph, post it at www.dorksfrombrazil.com. Password, not required. Username, not required. That, Vandalay, is how you threaten somebody, dummy.
Awesome, man. And number 3, I had Mr. Conor McGregor. Conor, Mystic Mac. For me, man, he's just one of those polarizing figures. And that personality that could be, in some cases, somewhat overwhelming, depending on who he's working with, who he's going to be fighting up against, who he's talking shit to. But a lot of what you said about Chael Sonnen, but he just took it to the next level. we're talking about a fighter here that started drawing a lot of attention when he started predicting the round he's going to be winning in, how he was going to be winning. And it ended up coming true a lot of the times. So right away, he started getting people's attention. He wasn't just talking the talk, he was walking the walk.
Yeah.
And now, with the billionaire strut that he has, he kind of stole that from Vince McMahon, but it's his now. And really, like, I know that there's been other fighters before that have kind of made the transition from MMA to being more mainstream. But again, somebody that just took it to the next level, kind of transitioned over to pop culture. Even if you weren't a big MMA fan or UFC fan, you knew who Conor McGregor was. And then being able to make that step into boxing as well to fight Mayweather, that he's just somebody that I think is going to go down in history as somebody that paved the way for a lot of fighters on how to make more money at what they're doing.
Yeah,
and you see a lot of fighters these days copying them.
Yeah, I think for me, the only reason he got bumped out of the top 3 for me is just towards the end there and the most recent years. The trash talking used to be really creative, especially at the beginning. I was a huge Conor fan right from the start. But for me, it was towards the end of his career, the trash talking was just kind of like loud and obnoxious, more so than like creative and like he used to really get under the skin of people. And then it was like people would be sitting there while he was going off for like 2 minutes, and then they just like move on to the next thing. And like, but for a while, man, that his rise was insane. Dude,
the red panty night.
Yeah.
At the press conference, who the fook is that guy? When Jeremy Stevens is talking shit.
Yeah.
There's just so many one-liners that I think are going to be stuck in a lot of people's heads for some time to come.
Yeah.
So that's why I put Mr. Mystic Mac there at number 3. And Mystic Mac right there. Right there.
Who do you think would give you the hardest fight out of anybody on stage?
Right here. Right here, the hardest hitting 145 pound, the real hardest hitting 145er right here. This guy TKOs people. When I knock people out, they don't fucking move. They're not, who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that? You know damn well who I am. Who the fuck is that? Oh my God. I don't know. When I take...
Yeah, it makes sense. It's a good pick. So yeah, I mean, and also his especially the first fight, going into the first fight, it was short-lived because Nate took the fight on short notice. I think it was like 11 days. But man, those 11 days leading up to Conor versus Nate was insane.
Legendary.
Yeah, unmatched. I don't know if it'll ever be touched before or again. And that transitions me to my number 2 personality is not Nate Diaz, but the guy who was kind of the unsung hero, in my opinion, was Nick Diaz. He's my number 2 personality just because, man, just growing up, when I first started getting into the UFC or just MMA in general, Nick was like just a weird question mark of a guy. Like, I'd never seen anything like it before, right? Like, I mean, knew plenty of like thug people, right? Growing up and stuff. I mean, right next to Salinas, knew plenty of people, right? But to see somebody who he was marketed as this thug, in your face, talk shit, not a great person. He was marketed in that light, but then when you really watched him, master martial artist, tons of real respect for the tradition, and just you could tell just so frustrated with being misunderstood, but had no idea how to show differently with what he was getting.
I would have said, hey, I'm gonna fight. I always want to go for the best fight. That's why I'm always calling out George St. Pierre. I don't have anything against George St. Pierre. I think he's a great fitter. I think he's a nice guy, just like everybody else. And he's a great role model. I would love to be that too if I was in that position. I just unfortunately haven't ever had the opportunity and the right people behind me to push me to be that type of that type of fighter or that type of role model, or what you would like to see.
Is what George St. Pierre said. And we call Carlos Condit. He's agreed. He stepped aside, and he wants to fight on that same card. So we're hoping to do this thing Super Bowl weekend in Las Vegas. There you go.
See how I gotta come off just to get a fight? I gotta come off like that just to get a fight. And it's, you know what I'm saying? I gotta be the bad guy. You gonna point the finger, make me the bad guy. I'm the bad guy. Now I get a fight.
Right? So, like, I mean, man, people used to fucking hate Nick Diaz. It seems weird now because everybody loves, and partly because of the Conor fight with Nate Diaz, but everybody loves the Diaz brothers. They still have haters, right? Some people still talk shit about them, but for the most part, especially Nate, superstar. He blew up when he beat Conor. It was insane, and it really sucks because while I'm happy for Nate for capitalizing on that moment, he finally got his due in that moment. Mm-hmm. It just sucks that Nick still, in my opinion, just never really got that. He never. By the time Nate fought Conor, the UFC had learned to embrace that kind of attitude and market it correctly. But man, earlier on, the UFC, and I understand the UFC was trying to look like the MLB or the NFL. We're a sport. We're not just. They were trying to market it that way. They were trying to legitimize
not just a bunch of thugs trying to fight, and we're more than that.
Yeah, and MMA wasn't even legal in every state in America, so like they were trying to do their part and looking professional. And Nick did not fit that bill, but man, he got screwed so many times. And just I used to watch his interviews all the time growing up, and just listening and seeing these people, and you could tell people were talking shit about him being uneducated. He would talk and run on sentences. But man,
or not finish sentences and move on.
Yeah, I think something would come up in his mind and he'd be on to this now, and you're like, what was that? And just the social anxiety, and then you find more about his past and where he came from and all these things.
Let me tell you, I don't know how much houses cost up there in Stockton, but bro, let me tell you what, you got enough money to move. I guarantee you that.
While I'm fighting every 2 months, every 3 months, I might have to take a few fights off and try to situate my, you know what I'm saying? My brother moved, and it's like, it's a long story, man. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know how to go buying a house in the middle of all this training. I didn't go to school for that, I started training jiu-jitsu when I was 16 years old, because I got thrown around through a few schools. I started training jiu-jitsu when I was 16. I went on, 100%, because I already knew I beat all these guys. I beat everybody, and that should do it. So, if I had a half a second to kind of situate something, then that'd be that. Everyone wants to make their little jokes and laugh. And Dan says, too, all you guys laugh at me. That's not funny, all right? If I just backed out of the fight like George did, I could have got my life together. Yeah, I could have thrown some money on something, right? And then I would have nothing to complain about. But unfortunately, that's not the situation I've been in, and nobody knows what it is, But it is what it is, and it's not a good time. It's not, And right, nobody wants to come see it. Every time I'm avoiding the press, nobody wants to come see that. That's not appealing to anybody.
I mean, and you look at the run that he had on top of that when he was over in Strikeforce, and not to mention early days UFC, knocked out Robbie Lawler, beat Frank Shamrock, Paul Daly, all these guys. A champion in Strikeforce comes over. They make him fight BJ Penn, which you could tell he absolutely hated fighting BJ Penn because he respected him so much. He was supposed to fight GSP for the belt. That doesn't happen because he misses the press conferences and they cancel the fight. He has to fight Carlos Condit. Carlos Condit wins a controversial fight. Now he gets his title shot taken away from him, and just so many things. And man, it was just an era of misunderstanding, and he was just such an enigma that I would watch him fight any day. If he fought tomorrow, I'd watch it. It sucks that his career ends up almost like a what could have been. If he showed up on the scene now, would have been a monster. Would have been a fan favorite.
Absolutely.
Would have been making millions of dollars. His biggest payday was that Anderson Silva fight, and even after that, he tests positive for weed. They give him a five-year suspension. It's just one thing after another. It just bums me out. But one of my all-time favorite fighters, got to meet him, and it was awesome. Just such a great guy.
Yeah.
My number two.
I guess I kind of cheated on this one, Will, because I I chose the Diaz brothers
Yeah, yeah.
as my number 2. You know, and for a lot of the same reasons. From the streets of Stockton, California, repping the 209, and you know they. What I love about them is that this character and persona that they carry around, it's not a character really.
Yeah.
It's who they are, and who you see in the octagon is who you see everywhere else. You know, and they're those guys that if they tell you they have beef with you, it's not a la Conor McGregor to try to sell more fights, right? Where at the end of the fight, he says, hey, it's only business after he gets his ass kicked by Khabib.
Yeah.
No, if the Diaz brothers tell you they got beef, they got beef. So if they see you in the hotel room
Or the hospital.
they see you anywhere else, dude, yeah, in the hospital, it's fucking going down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think about the brawl with Mayhem Miller.
These things happen in MMA.
These things happen in MMA, right? But that's just who they are. And to this day, they talk about the people that they respect. They respect the OGs that have been doing it right the whole time in the game. And, you know, when you take a look at Nate Diaz, for example, and he goes on that rant calling out Conor McGregor, and he says, you took everything I worked for, motherfucker, you know?
Yeah.
And, that's because he feels like he just catapulted into that stardom just with his mouth. But he's been really grinding away, old school way, you know, taking any fight that was tossed his way and just throwing down for a real fight. You know, and I think that's why you said, who was it that we were talking about that he respected? You know, and he gives him like a little head nod. Robbie Lawler, yeah. There's a lot of fighters that they don't do that with.
No,
where to this day,
it's a short list.
You know, it's a short list where to this day they still see him again. They'll probably start talking shit, want to throw down. Brendan Schaub, I guess, said something about Nate Diaz and the Conor fight. And Nate Diaz runs into Brendan Schaub in a hallway, and he starts trying to fight him in a hallway. And Brendan Schaub's like, dude, what are you talking about, man? Like, I'm just talking on a podcast, and I tell dick jokes for a living now. And Nate Diaz is like,
not very well.
You fucking ran your mouth. Yeah, but he's like, now you ran your mouth, so we got problems, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I love about the Diaz brothers, man. And for me as well, somebody or a couple guys are going to go down as some of my favorite fighters ever. And I absolutely agree with you 100%. I think Nick could have been bigger.
He would have been way bigger.
He could have been bigger, man.
It was wrong time, wrong place.
And these stupid suspensions too. You know, to the point where, I mean, this guy's not going to stop smoking weed. You know, and in a way, I kind of think he does it because of that social anxiety and all these other things
100%,
he does.
yeah.
And that he has, right? So, you take away a big part of this guy's career due to smoking weed. I mean, this is just who this guy is. Take a look at his, I think it's like his first grade or second grade picture where all the kids are smiling and he's in the background holding his fist up with the little, you know? That's just who he is, man. And that's why I love the Diaz brothers. That's why they're my number 2 on this list.
Yeah, definitely. Alrighty.
Right.
Number 1.
You're number 1. I'm excited.
My number 1 is the OG of OGs. A lot of people forgot him or never even heard of him. The OG of OGs is Genki Sudo. Genki Sudo, my number 1.
Sudo.
Yeah, number 1 because
I was not expecting that.
I mean, number 1 personality because we talk about how Chael ushered in the showmanship and cutting promos and talking shit from WWE. Genki Sudo had the crazy walk-ins where he's doing the robot in crazy outfits, comes out as a baseball player. He's got a bunch of cheerleaders behind him doing a dance to the cage, or the ring at least. A short-lived UFC career, only 3 fights in the UFC, but in my opinion, won all 3 of them. They made a new rule because of him, because he got screwed in that Dwayne Ludwig fight back in the day when Dwayne Ludwig looked like he was 14 years old. Because in that 3rd round he was dominating him on top, and Ludwig had a cut. They stand him up. Big John stands him up, and then when they restart the fight, they stand him up to check the cut. They restart the fight and they start standing, and it's like, can't do that. Sudo had top control. So after that fight, they changed the rule, and everybody calls it the Genki Sudo rule. If you stand it up for doctors to check, you take it back exactly where it was. Seemed like common sense, but it wasn't back then, I guess. I think it was like 2006 or 2005. But the theatrics of his walkouts, the definite theatrics of his fights. You watch him fight. I mean, when he fought Ludwig, he came out backwards. He's walking on him backwards, doing weird hand stuff, looking over his shoulder. It's like, what the fuck are we doing here? He has the craziest submission back in Pancrase where he was standing in someone's guard and he's just grabs him by the ankles, starts spinning him around like it's a WWE fight, and then just drops real quick into a leg lock.
that.
Yeah, taps him out. Insane stuff like that. Jumping off the ropes. He fought Butterbean. He leg locked Butterbean. Just crazy antics in the cage. And then you would think, oh, this guy's disrespectful, right? He's taunting. He's doing the robot while he's while he's fighting. And then he'll pop you with the jab off the robot. And it's like, you think he's disrespectful, and then as soon as he finishes an opponent, he gets up, bows to them, helps them up, is like the most respectful guy, brings out the flag, right? The we're all one, with all the other flags on it every time.
Yeah.
So much personality and charisma that no matter what, even outside of the UFC, you watch him fight, you're like, what the fuck are we gonna watch now? Like what is he gonna do in this fight? Like literally jumping off the ropes. He fought Kid Yamamoto back in the day for a Grand Prix championship. He got stopped in the first round, but it was a pretty controversial stoppage. He got dropped in his guard, Yamamoto, and props, rest in peace, Kid Yamamoto. That dude was sick as fuck. And he's hitting him from the guard, and they call the fight, and he's instantly like, what the fuck? Like, he hit me like 4 times. What are you doing? Especially back then, dude, in Japan, I used to let those fights keep going for quite a while. But so just a ton of charisma right before the cage or the ring, depending on where he's fighting. And then in the fight itself, a ton of charisma. And then you look at his personality outside of fighting after he retired. A best-selling author. He's won awards for, he started that pop group, that pop band, and was directing and doing choreography for their music videos.
Oh, dang.
Has won awards for that. Insane video. They're so funny, dude. The guy's hilarious. And then I think last year he gets elected as like a councilman, which is, I guess, similar to a congressman here, but over in Japan. And now he's in Japan's government running shit. And it's like,
wow,
this guy's fucking crazy, man. Just so much charisma leading up to fights, during fights, and then now after fighting. Just so much. He's just good at everything. He's like a Renaissance man. You know what I mean? So that's my number one personality. So much personality.
That's a good pick, man.
Yeah.
That's a good pick. And with my number one, I think you know who I'm going to pick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Can you guess?
I'm going to guess he has a middle name that you're going to put in when you announce him. At least the first letter of
Chael
it.
P. Sonnen. Absolutely. That's my number one pick, man. I think you know how much I love Chael Sonnen.
Mm-hmm.
I have for the longest time. I think I was one of the only guys that was really rooting for Chael P. Sonnen, the bad guy, the American gangster from West Lynn, Oregon. You know, I
From the
absolutely
streets.
love him. And from the streets, hardcore streets of West Lynn, Oregon. But when he was fighting Anderson Silva, and everybody was just all over Anderson Silva, you know, and everybody wanted to see him beat Chael P. Sonnen's ass. And I was that guy that was rooting for the bad guy, Chael P. Sonnen. You know, and for a lot of the reasons that you said as well, Will, you know, bringing that shit talking and that WWE type style persona. And I think that for me, what made me gravitate to him was the fact that he stood out because of that. He was willing to break the norm. You know, I don't think that he disrespected mixed martial arts as a whole by doing what he did. And I know some people took it as that, right? Where the respectful bowing, the, you know, handshakes and everything leading up to fights. He didn't necessarily carry that into all his fights, but he got more attention. He drew more eyeballs. You know, I think he brags about being the highest earner when he retired at that time.
Yeah.
Just due to the amount of pay-per-view draws that he was getting. So if you ask me, a lot of the folks that fought Chael P. Sonnen, specifically Silva, owes him a big thank you for those fat paychecks that were coming in for those fights.
Tito always says I'm using my mouth to get my opportunities. The only person I know that made money using their mouth is his ex-wife.
That's what you call class right here compared to no class.
That was a nasty line.
No
by
class.
me.
No class at all. That's why you see him with thongs and fucking jeans and a t-shirt. No class.
They don't call you the bad guy for nothing.
And because of that, I think he paved the way for a lot of fighters in knowing how to promote extra fights. You know, the extra personalities and the shit talking stuff that comes along. A lot of it, I think, is owed to Mr. Chael P. Sonnen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's my number one pick, man. I did have some honorable mentions that I wanted to toss out there. I'm sure you probably have some off the top of your head.
Yeah.
I have an honorable mention, Donald Cowboy Cerrone, because again, somebody that is just being who he is. But we talk about like a straight up cowboy, and I write down what I think about him. Right, he's just a cave diving, skydiving, horseback riding, down to fight anywhere, anyone. And he's proven that plenty of times where people are like, dude, what are you doing? He's picking up a short fight notice, and he's flying off to Europe, where he doesn't have to do that with his name. So he was definitely on my honorable mention. And Colby Covington. And I know this might piss a lot of people off, but you want to talk about somebody that has been a heel and is almost hated by everybody.
Yeah.
He rides and dies with a character and persona that he has created for himself. The cheap suits, the women he pays off to just stand behind him and look good.
But not touch him.
Yeah, but you can't touch him. They won't give him a back massage, nothing. Yeah. The Make America Great Again hats or Keep America Great. Like, dude, he's
Trump Jr. book he carries around.
Oh, my God. Dude. He's writing his personality, that character hard, man, and it's working for him because people are tuning in to watch him lose. Yeah. Whether they're tuning in to watch him lose or to watch him win, they're tuning in. And he's making that happen. And then somebody that I think is a little early, but I think if he continues with his current personality and performance would be Israel Adesanya.
Well, I was going to ask you, the reason I asked you before doing this was when I asked you if any of your top three were current fighters, but you said yes, but none of them were, technically.
Conor McGregor, I guess he's kind of retired / not retired.
Whoa. Yeah, he's retired.
Is he still in the rankings?
Technically, but didn't you see Dana...
Then he's not retired, bro. Because he's saying he's going to fight next year. You know what I mean? So,
okay, well, so barring Conor, let's say Conor's retired. Nate, I don't know if we ever see Nate fight again. Is Colby your current fighter, current active fighter who's the best personality currently?
I think currently right now, I'd have to say Colby, man. And that's just, again, because of the fact that he rides with that character so
he goes hard. That's gotta be a stressful one.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether he's on a podcast. It doesn't matter whether he's doing a post-fight interview. It doesn't matter where he's at. Like, everybody says he's like the nicest guy. Like anybody that really knows him. But as soon as those cameras are on or the microphone's on, he switches over to Colby Chaos Covington real quick. And, dude, again, he is hated by so many people. It's crazy. Everybody wants to kick his ass. Yeah,
and it's got to be stressful carrying that constantly. I would imagine it's tough in the public
he's handling
eye like
it with grace.
Yeah, I think my current best personality is Darren Till. That dude, especially once the lockdown started happening, son of a bitch, man. His Instagram page where he's posting about Five Guys and he's just he's just constantly bloating up and taking pictures of his bloated belly. He's like getting ready for fights and stuff. And man, just the pictures of like his kids' toys all over the floor. And he's just like, this is my life. And then once he's the trolling of Mike Perry to the point where Mike Perry blocked him, like just constantly trolling. And then when he called out Robert Whittaker, just constantly asking for Rob. And just his Instagram page is so fucking funny, dude. He's just trolling on such a purely funny level. And then I'm pretty sure, I forgot how it started, but I think it started with him saying that he was gonna raw dog Platinum Princess, Mike Perry's ex, and now he's selling his own raw dog shirts that are like Supreme shirts, but it says raw dog. It's like
raw dog on it.
Man, what a fuck! That guy's so fucking funny, man.
I love how honest he is, man. Like, when he talks about how his confidence took a massive hit after his loss to Masvidal, right? After he lost to Woodley, then lost to Masvidal, and he said, man, I needed to go in there and find my confidence again. Yeah. And then, he talks about how he's terrified before he fights. And fighters, again, try to put on this wall where they're the super tough guy, macho guys. Now, Diaz, though, when he says he's really not afraid, I truly believe it.
What are you gonna do? He's been There's that story of him talking about how he got jumped by those guys and gets stabbed with a pen and shit. Once you do that, fighting one person in a cage that you know you're training for, how could that
it's
even be scary?
It's easier than Stockton.
Yeah,
you know.
Exactly.
How many times you had a gun to your head, George? How many times someone put a gun to your head? How many of your best friends been shot through the chest with a 45? Or how many of your best friends been stomped, put to sleep into a coma? And we all have to deal with these things in life.
But he talks about how he's afraid before he fights, and he just seems like a genuine person.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, those posts where he's talking shit to all these fighters, calls out Yoel Romero, and then the very next morning he's like, "Dude, I was so drunk last night. Did I really call out Yoel Romero? What the fuck am I doing?"
Yeah, and then other fighters are posting videos that they're sending him in DMs. That's not even him putting him out to the world, just him sending people videos talking shit to them, and they're the ones posting it. It's
they're like, hilarious. What the fuck did I just receive?
Yeah, at 3 a.m. Fucking hilarious,
I love it, man.
I'm fucking coming for you!
Yeah.
I love it. So, did you have any other honorable mentions?
Yeah, my only other honorable mention was GSP, just because personality-wise, not necessarily the one that's going to get him the most views or the most headlines, but when you're talking about a personality of a champion and an ambassador of the sport, other than DC, GSP is the only other person that you can even talk about being the greatest at it. Just so respectful. Never had not one slight scandal, nothing at all. Completely clean in the public eye. Represented a country that wasn't represented in martial arts. He's a cultural icon in Canada. I mean, you look at the records he was making or breaking when, like, as far as attendance goes for UFC events, just insane. People showed up for him. And just the level of what seems like complete honesty and just being comfortable with himself to the point where he can talk about not being, if this makes sense, he's so comfortable with himself that he can publicly talk about not being comfortable with himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a rare thing that you can come out and say that and talk with honesty and talk about being bullied growing up and how that still affects him now, being terrified every time he fights, even though he's considered by a lot of people the greatest to ever do it.
One of the GOATs.
Yeah, still terrified every single fight. I don't know if you saw...
I just love that he comes out and he reps paleontology.
Yeah. Hard, yeah. He loves it. I don't know if you saw... BT Sport just did a 45-minute video with GSP and Dan Hardy where they talk about when they fought. It's an interview. It's all three. It's the host, GSP, and Dan Hardy, and they're all talking about the fight. And then they watch the fight together, and GSP and Dan Hardy are answering questions about the fight, and they're commentating on the fight. And it's just so cool, man, just to see a true champion and one of the best to ever do it, his mindset about things. And it gets to the point where the host, I can't remember his name, he's a guy that does a lot of British MMA stuff, and then Dan Hardy, it turns into them just kind of picking his brain and being like, well, what were you thinking about this? What did you think going into this part? Like, what was your mindset? And it's just so cool.
I have to watch it.
Yeah, it's really good.
I have to watch it.
It's like 45 minutes long.
Today.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I hope they do more of these because I think it's the first one they've done where they sit down with two fighters who fought and just go over the fight. And I really, really hope they continue doing it because it was really cool to watch. GSP is fucking sick.
I'm going to have to check it out now. Just add it onto my list of things to watch.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have anything else?
No, not that I can think of.
Dude, this is one where I really want the listeners to comment on as much as possible.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really curious and interested to see, when we think about all these personalities and we've watched the evolution of MMA, and the evolution of, what fighters think is okay for them to bring to the octagon.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see who the listeners really enjoy, who they have enjoyed, whether they're fighting or not fighting anymore, and compare it to our lists.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where it's one of those questions where there's so many good ones that I'm sure there's great ones that if enough people were for voicing their opinions in the comments. I'm sure there's people that I'm like, fuck, how did I not even think of that guy? You know what I mean?
True.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is that there's no right and wrong in this.
Yeah,
like,
no, it's all opinion.
It's all opinion. It's all based off of personal preference, right? Again, you had Chael P. Sonnen, which there's no way you can go, I think, without. So that's one of the things where I think you need to have is Chael P. Sonnen on it. But whether you put him third, second, first, that's just your perception and your idea of who the top personalities have been. So dude, I'm curious, and hopefully we get a lot of comments on this one.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, brother, that's all I have.
Yep.
You good?
Yep.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to this small, short segment, Story of the Fight. Thank you. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Story of the Fight. We really appreciate everybody's support. If you don't mind hitting the subscribe button, and when you do subscribe, make sure that you hit the notification button as well. That way you get notified whenever we upload anything new. Don't forget to hit the like button. It goes a long way for us. And leave some comments. We love interacting with everybody.
Yeah, and if you want to stay even more up to date, you can follow us at Story of the Fight on Instagram and Twitter. And you can email us at storyofthefight@gmail.com. Ask questions, give us feedback, critique us. We want to make this better, and input helps us do that.
Thanks for listening to Story of the Fight, everybody.